All right, Shalom family, welcome. Come on in. Come on in. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Seem to be missing a little bit of stuff, but that is all right. Hopefully everybody is doing well. We appreciate your presence. We'll be right back. All right, Shalom. Sorry about that. Hello, welcome. Come on in. Excuse my walking away for a minute. Trying to find some stuff, but I guess we don't have it. We're gonna take some time out to just talk a little bit today. Praise Yah. I was trying to figure out exactly if there's a theme for this or if there's a specific set of scriptures for this today. Really, it's going to kind of just be us talking. If you want to talk back, of course you can. It's not a forced conversation. However, it's a conversation, or at least something that we should go through and look at. So we'll do that together. But let's go ahead and get started. I guess, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste. Osai Anakituya, Ohio. I see you. Manut. Kamsa, Kamsamida. Wagwan. Aloha. Ciao. Habarigani. Jambo, Bimini Kofi, Ninefra, Kukutana Nwewe, Akwaba, Madaese, Itisen, Grand Rising, Bokerto, Bokertav, Bakwatav, Barakala Chamihava, Anai Kofi, or Anai Kwadai, Halit at Servants of Christ, Mashalom Khe. Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time of being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. We appreciate your presence here today. Don't forget #SOC when you're looking for different things in the community. Hopefully you are continuing to support each other, share each other's videos, share each other's visions, missions, help each other out, support each other's businesses. Some of your businesses line up, and it is Yah's will that we be a community. So not just that we come together and do a couple things here or there, but that we actually, support one another and live as a family. So prayerfully you've been doing so, and you've been doing well with that. Continue to keep us in prayer. We are at the halfway point of getting back to where we need to be. So prayerfully by this evening, when you see me on the evening live session, you should see me in somewhat familiar surroundings for some of our evening sessions when we're up north. If you don't see us there, just know that we should be close to that and be back on track as far as being where we need to be tomorrow by the live session. And we thank you guys for being on. And those who are waiting on their gifts and everything, or their prizes, you should get your stuff sent to you then. And those of you who've been waiting to contact us about certain things, including with Bloom and Flourish product, you should get your products and everything sent to you then. Okay? All righty, but we thank you, everybody. We appreciate you. And thank you for being on. Let's see, where are we at? Oh, we give our honor and praise once again to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we thank everybody for being on. Looks like today we're having an issue with people being able to find us. It is what it is. Prayerfully, TikTok will allow people, and YouTube, I guess, will allow people to be able to find us later. I guess we're having connectivity issues or whatever. If you want to share the live with people or just give them a recall a reminder that we're on, feel free. I know we did start late with me trying to find signal. And then when y'all showed up at first, I wasn't necessarily on here. So I do get that. But prayerfully, we'll have some people come on. If not, we got the recording and everything for everyone. And today's just going to kind of be, as we were talking about earlier. By the way, we pray for Brother Robert as he gets ready to go through surgery today. And we're thankful that Sister Marion and her husband, Jimmy, made it where they needed to their destination safely. And but today we're going to go right into just a topic of discussion, one that we should, and maybe it's better that we only have a few. Who knows? Maybe we can have some chance to actually talk back and forth a little bit if you guys so want to. But we're going to have a really big thing that we should check up on every once in a while. And so that's what I'm sent to do today. Prayerfully, you can hear me all right. Maybe we have a signal issue. I know that I have low signal on TikTok, and it's the Wi-Fi I'm using. I'm outside for YouTube, but prayerfully, this will be something that everybody can at least find, and you can at least hear, hopefully. We had an issue yesterday with YouTube where I couldn't see you guys, but you guys said you could see me. So, but we'll go ahead and get ready to do our Bible pledge. So if you're able to stand or reverence the word, if you're able to sit or be quiet or be still somewhere just for a second. And if you've never done it before, you can just repeat after me. But let's say hello, everybody, real quick. All right, you said I'm all right. Okay, cool. How you doing, Aaron? How you doing, Minister Stephen? How you doing, Beck? How you doing, Donovan? How you doing, Dennis? How you doing, Sister Iska? How you doing, Miss Q? Brother Jermaine, Bruda. I believe I saw Minister Tamara on there earlier, Minister Morel. Lottie Dottie, everybody, thank you so much for being on. We appreciate you. How you doing, Darius? Praise Yah. Jared, Gentle B-Star, everybody. I think I said hello, Brother Jermaine, Brother Craig. Hola, mi hermana, ¿cómo estás? Hermana Sherry. Big Brother Thomas, much love and respect. Thank you. Please pray for Duran. Successfully passes elevator mechanic. Okay, amen. Matter of fact, we can do that real quick. We thank you for life, health, and strength. We come to you just quickly, touching and agreeing with the request by Minister Tamara that Duran would be able to pass his tests, that he might be able to able to grow in what you have for him, and he might be able, even in going into this particular field, would have an opportunity to be able to have opportunities that others have not had worldwide, and would be able to actually be more meaningful than many others are, due to the fact that he will have this unique and awesome gift. It is in the mighty and matchless name that we thank you in advance by saying together, Amen. All right, amen. So let's say our Bible pledge real quick. It goes like this. This is my Bible. This is my sword, and this will I trust. For Yahshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible, and this is Yah's word. Hashem Yechavach, Amen. In Yechavah's name, amen. All righty. All right. So today we're just going to go through some stuff. We're going to revisit a little bit of, or go back over trauma. We don't need to stay in trauma, but every once in a while we kind of have to revisit traumas, see certain things that are where you were. How you doing, Brother Dwayne? And so today, like I said, it's more of a conversation. If you guys want to talk about some trauma, put some trauma stuff out there, talk about what's happened. Not necessarily a Q&A, but kind of in that flow, in that vein a little bit. But we know that trauma oftentimes causes us to hold on to things. A lot of times when people use the term soul ties, they're talking about we're usually only talking about negative soul ties. And when we talk about soul ties, usually people are only talking about things that are coming up that are caused from some kind of trauma. Right? How you doing, Minister Samantha Ray? How you doing, Sister Sabria? So a lot of the stuff that we have a discussion about concerning trauma is usually if we be honest, when something is traumatic, we've talked about this before. Trauma oftentimes is nostalgic, right? You can have nostalgic trauma where you have decided that because you went through something and because you survived it or whatever, you put a positive spin. You found a way to have cognitive dissonance, right? You put a positive spin on something that really you should have never went through. And rather than going back and recapturing the power before you started to go through that, even if it's something that you had power before and you started getting abused pretty much right out the womb, right? But you have not gone back to a place to where you should have had power and begin to cleanse yourself of some of these things. You've attached yourself to a lot of these memories, right? And so when people tell you you should get away from trauma, it's almost like a form of drapetomania that you have to deal with. If you don't know what drapetomania is, in the 1600s, they came up with this whack term to say that those of us who wanted to escape from slavery were crazy, had mania, right? Drapetomania. So a lot of times we dismiss it. And so, especially in our diaspora, really a lot of people, if you're poor, if you're broke, if you just got bad situations you came out of, whatever the case might be, it's usually a class thing more so than anything else. But we'll compare the bad things. We'll be like, man, you don't know nothing about these whoopings. Man, I used to get hit in the face and my nose bled. You just got hit with belts. Somebody else retorts, no, man, you don't know nothing about getting whoopings, man. My mom used to use a frying pan over the head. Oh, you think that's all that, man? They used to take an extension cord and they would literally have us put our hands in the air and they'd whip us from across the room like it was slavery. Oh yeah, well, you don't know about getting the switch. Oh, well, you think about the switch? You don't know about taking the switch and braiding it, right? It's we start competing in trauma. It's nostalgic for us. How you doing, Sister Beverly? How you doing, Jonah Key? It's nostalgic for us. How you doing, Eccentric Faith? We have this nostalgic trauma. Trauma has become our nostalgia. Trauma has become the thing that we look back at. As much as we try to act like not, we know it's not favorable, but we try our best to look at it favorably because we can't say, right, recall, we have this weird thing, especially in churches and stuff, but we have this weird thing, this weird setup, right, that says that if I admit that I've gone through something, that I'm not holy or whatever, but at the same time, we also have this weird thing that comes out that says, if I act like I'm blessed, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people in their piety, a lot of people mistake piety and poverty for the same thing. So if I have a poor mindset, then I have a pious mindset. If I got a poor way of living, I have a pious way of living. If I have a poor way of speaking, then I have a pious way of speaking. You know, if you speak too well, you're not black enough type thing. If you speak too well, you're not hood enough. If you speak too well, you're not, you're too cityfied. You know, different things like that. If you stand for righteousness, how dare you do that? If you're willing to talk about things and try to change things and bring people together, there's people would rather talk about trauma than how to fix trauma. And so today we're going to talk about trauma, but we want to see if we can work towards removing some of this and not having it be a standard for us, right? Because your trauma, if you're not careful, becomes the stumbling block for somebody's greatness. How you doing, Lady K? Can I say that again? If you're not careful, your trauma becomes the stumbling block for somebody's greatness. How you doing, Sister Nadine? Do you hear what I'm saying? I'm gonna say it one more again. Your trauma, if you're not careful, your trauma becomes the stumbling block for somebody else's greatness. How you doing, Sister Renee? All right. How you doing, Noel? How you doing, Brother Thomas? Not to be confused with Big Brother Thomas. Right? So what's happened for a lot of people is a lot of your children, a lot of people who should go for it, a lot of people who could have done something, a lot of people who should have got something because you had trauma or something is traumatic or because you keep bringing it up, it's nostalgic for you. So when somebody goes through something because you never healed, when a child is getting ready to do something, you stop them. When somebody's parent is getting ready to be blessed, you stop the parent. When your spouse might be able to do something, but it looks like the shadow, right? Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and that's a huge thing. If it's the valley of the shadow of death, we know that's twofold, because the valley of the shadow of death is actually a real place, right, where there were criminal behavior and stuff, but also a shadow implies that it's not the real thing. A shadow can be cast upon you, but it not hurt you, or it can remind you of a shape, but not hurt you, right? So if I were to actually, strike someone, it would hurt. But if my shadow would have hit you, the shadow doesn't do anything. Or if you see a shadow that reminds you of the fist that you've been hit with before, it might cause some kind of stimulation. It might cause you to freak out for a second, but there's no actual danger there. And what happens for a lot of people is we should actually be getting blessed, or somebody else. Let's say you're in a marriage and you've been in a bad relationship before. Your spouse is now doing something that seems similar to what somebody else is doing, but they have love in their heart. They've proven themselves. They've shown themselves to be righteous in the way that they love you, right? And now here you are. This person is getting ready to bless you, and you can't take the blessing. Why? Because in your mind you go straight to, when I was with so and so, they did da 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 da, and so you can't even accept it because it automatically does that. Or nostalgic trauma. Um, some of us have been blessed to be able to get out of certain addictions. The addictions are nostalgic, but they're traumatic, right? Like some of us have had extreme addictions to alcohol, extreme addictions to sugars, extreme addictions to everybody had to like us. There's many addictions. People are addicted to fat. Fat, salt, and sugar is what you're going to find at every restaurant that you go to, whether fast food or not. Um, and so in this nostalgia, right? Some of you are addicted to a breakfast. It's nostalgia. Breakfast just means break fast. Whenever you stop breaking your fast, that's breakfast. There's no such thing as a breakfast time. Whenever you decide that you are going to go ahead and actually stop your fast and eat, you have break fast. So you break fast 3 times a day. A lot of you, sometimes 4, 5, 6, 7 times, because even those little snacks and stuff, every time that's done, you break fast. Matter of fact, if we be honest about it, even when you put your smell goods on, so to speak, or your or your shea butters or your lotions or whatever, right? Even the soap, your body eats. When you put your deodorant on or your antiperspirant on, your body eats. So you still break fast. But somebody taught you something. So you're nostalgic. So a lot of people would say, I have to have breakfast. It's the first meal of the day. But somebody lied. Remember, if you know about, what is his name? Jeff Bezos, right? From over Amazon. Everybody does this weird thing where we redo people's history once they make it. He was not just some poor random person on the street. Jeff Bezos actually comes from a family where they got paid for propaganda. And they were the family that started getting women to smoke, like by doing the Virginia Slims and all that stuff. They were also the family that got people to start eating breakfast. So you have all these farmers, they're growing stuff. Nobody's buying stuff. They got this extra stuff laying around. Nobody's eating. So they say, hey, we need you to push some stuff. So they started talking about breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And this is what a balanced breakfast looks like. We know now that all that stuff was a lie. It was fabricated. That food pyramid is trash. However, how many years did people go? And to be honest, people still go off of it and still teach their children that. And you still see some of it in some schools around the world. But it was trash. It was something done to be able to sell you on an idea that would get you to believe that breaking fast starts when you get up, rather than the fact that whenever you eat, you break fast, right? Even the whole thing now, people go the opposite way. Intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is nothing more than what? Intermittent fasting is nothing more than what? Intermittent fasting just means I'm waiting to eat my one time a day, and usually sometime around when the sun goes down. And but now people are making a whole thing about that, and now it's become this new thing, right? Well, you're nostalgic about breakfast, though. The only reason why it's hard for you to fast or maybe not eat every day, because you don't need to, is because you are nostalgic about it. You have a rhythm. You have a like, just like people have a circadian rhythm, you have a rhythm. So your rhythm declares to you that you're supposed to do this. It's a methodology. It's a habit, right? Like any other habit. So you have this habit that you're supposed to get up and put something in your face, stuff your face every day when you get up, right? It's muscle memory, right? It's like if you're going to write, you don't think about writing, you just do. You don't think about eating, you just do. You don't think about cooking, you just do. You see? How you doing, Moises? Thank you for being part of the community. Or Moises, I don't know which way you pronounce it, right? So your trauma becomes, and so your trauma causes you have developed habits out of trauma. Some of you smile at things that you don't even find entertaining, but you develop the habit of doing so out of trauma. It's how you deal with it. It's how you hide your pain. Some of you hiding your pain is more important than medicating, right? You know, we talk about medicating pain and stuff. I think we have to even start. I'm still in the midst of trying to think how we would say it differently. Amen. Amen. Is it Lauren or Lowen? Please forgive me, Jenkins. Um, you know, but it's important that we actually be honest about that, right? That we talk about the symptoms, right? When somebody's on drugs, that's the symptom, but you don't medicate. You're not really medicating, if you will, your symptom with the drug. The drug, right? The drug use is hiding your actual pain. The drug use is actually the painkiller, and painkillers we know are detrimental to the body. There's a couple natural ones, but let's be honest, most people are not trying to use natural painkillers. You know, if we got back to natural law, maybe you could, but even still, in using the natural painkiller, you still should fix what the issue is. The pain is actually necessary, mandatory, right? If somebody were to come to me in a certain, and I'm not a herbalist. My wife is the herbalist, right? And I'm not a doctor, just for educational purposes only. But if somebody were to come to me and they would say, Pastor Kofi, I need you to help. I trust you. I don't really trust anybody like that. Whatever you can do for me, help me. And I'd be like, okay, well, I'm not really going to administer medicine, do any of that. I'm just going to look at things. They say, okay, well, then I would say, if you're taking any painkillers, we're going to have you like maybe cease and desist on those, at least long enough that we can figure out where the pain is coming from and you can explain the pain. Because if not, right, you'll be so high, right, that we can't tell. You might be walking in a manner where you're actually hurting yourself, because maybe your pain would tell you don't walk right now. You see? You see how, like, the trauma, I need to hear the trauma, I need to see the trauma. It's like the little girl who was messed with, and now she's a grown woman and she can't love correctly, because even though she's grown to be this, she's never dealt with the actual trauma. So since she's never dealt with the trauma, right, or because she holds on to the trauma, or because she's become this strong woman because of the trauma, so strong that she keeps breaking down, that she's been walking on it, but now her life is ginger. She walks gingerly, she lives gingerly, as Deuteronomy 28 verse 56, I believe, says, where the woman gets so messed up, right? Our women, our sisters in our diaspora have gotten so messed up by being attacked and not having protection they should have. It says literally that they don't even like to walk on the soles of their feet, right? If you have a problem walking on the sole of your feet, then we should figure out why that is. We should figure out if there's a skin condition going on. We should find out if there's a blood flow issue going on. We should find out if you haven't exercised enough. We should find out if maybe you've been a little too heavy. We should find out what you're eating, right? There's a lot of different things, but it says in Deuteronomy 28 verse 56, says literally that our sisters get to a place to where they don't even want to put the soles of their feet down. They don't want to leave the house, right? They do what they have to do, but they're not really trying to do anything more than just the basics. That's a tough place to live. And they try to tell us how they feel, but in society, they're not supposed to tell us how they feel, right? So they live in trauma. They've actually bonded with trauma. You know how people talk about trauma bonding, where two people who've gone through trauma might bond, but they've actually literally bonded with their trauma. They become one with it. They've said, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to do. Go ahead and treat me as such. They literally become one with their trauma. So a lot of people live. Yeah, they'll say that you're nagging, right? But the reality is that if you have somebody who's been taught that if they say anything about their trauma, they're wrong. If they try to get people to help them with their trauma, they're wrong. If they try to fix their trauma, they're uppity. At some point, somebody's gonna say, "Well, if you want me to be the biggest, baddest person out there, then let me be that." You can't be upset with the sister that says, "Hey, I told you that I need to be." What, like in the six basic human needs? Let's go to that. Six basic human needs. What is the woman's number one and number two need always going to be? It's always going to be security and affection. That's how she's designed, right? I'm not now. Let's recondition that. 'Cause recall this. We're talking about culture, right? So in our culture, let's be honest. We're not talking about just any woman. We're talking about a wife by our standards, okay? And you're pre-qualified in our culture to be a wife even before you become a man's wife, so to be, or really a husband's wife. Every man in our society goes through training to become a husband, and then as a husband he can find it a wife, right, and find it the tabah or a righteous or a moral thing. And every sister has the opportunity, right, to go through the training to become a wife, and when she is therefore found, she has the right to be able to express whether or not she will be able to help that brother in what it is, that husband, and what it is that he's doing. How you doing, Sister Stan? Right? But security and affection are number one and number two. Right? Okay, thank you. Security and affection are number one and number two. Right? Now, if she doesn't feel secure and if she doesn't get affection, the rest of the stuff's not going to really work. You don't get a nurturing, motherly wife, right? If she doesn't feel secure and doesn't get affection, she'll give it to you to a certain extent because she can't help it. But at the end of the day, there's going to be something that's going to shift. You say, Con, that's why you built a brick wall around yourself that you protected. Yeah. Like at some point, she's going to get security and affection in some way, shape, or form. You call it acting out. But in some way, shape, or form, she's going to get that security. She's going to get that affection. I promise you. Right? Now, it might be acting out of what her character should be, but we cannot deny that there's trauma that helped get her to that place, that propelled her to this place of, yeah, I'm going to get security one way, or I'm going to block everybody out. I'm going to be distant. I'm not going to allow people to be in my heart. I will start having relationships with men, right? I heard a sister say a joke. I don't recall her name. I heard a sister say a joke on one of the things that popped up on my YouTube shorts earlier today, where she says, you know, or maybe it was on Facebook, I can't recall, but she basically says, I'm becoming better with relationships. I've decided to start getting to know the men that I sleep with. And I chuckled for a hot second, and then I said, ooh, right? Not just because, oh, she bad, blah, blah, this and that, whatever. I said, ooh, because I was like, society doesn't even think that that's a big deal, right? And if she's guarded, why would she make sure that she gets to know whoever it is, that they just gonna break her heart anyways? If it was just a physical transaction, let's do what we do, and I'll talk to you later. See, trauma is a I'll say it like this: trauma is a sha'al, or a hell of a thing. It is, and people have bonded with trauma. They have put their thank you for the love. They have put their name, so to speak. They have signed their name to trauma. People have learned to not live outside of trauma. So since people have learned not to live outside of trauma, and people have decided that um, they shouldn't separate themselves from it, we have to recognize that means we have societies that are more into trauma. This is why, and look, I've been studying it. I'm not going to act like I haven't studied it at all. I've mentioned it several times. We even did a men's meeting looking at some of this stuff. But this is why when you have a rap beef, right, especially with Kendrick and Drake, everybody can't wait to see it. It's actually very effeminate what's going on. We normally would say this is like gossip, which we attribute to women normally. I'm not saying men don't gossip, but normally we would say, you know, this is very much so like, forgive me for saying it this way, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's like very catty behavior, right? For two persons to be going back and forth and be like, well, you did, but I heard you did. Well, I heard you did. Well, you not this. Well, I make more money than you. Okay, well, you're not a great parent. Oh, okay, well, you gonna say that with you, not with your wife. Oh, well, this is right. Very messy, right? Very, very much so. But we're so much into trauma that gets you ratings. Right? So everybody's all in. What's Kendrick gonna say next? Is Kendrick gonna drop? Has Drake finally finished? Did Drake wave the white flag? It's about it's we're in the trauma. How you doing, Sister Monica? And how you doing, Minister Jenny? Praise God for you. Right? We're in the trauma. Trauma is nostalgic. Trauma gets you out of bed. Right? There's some people who get out of bed and can't wait to go ahead and deal with their haters, because their haters are their motivators. Right? But why would your hater? You said the only one you listen to because it was Kendrick. Yeah. And by the way, I'll be honest. You know, I don't really. Well, I don't think that. Well, either way, I'll be honest. I listened to it. It is what it is. It was pretty decent as far as the flow and everything. I'm not gonna hold you. That being said, though, right? This whole my haters and my motivators thing. My haters are my motivators. Can I be honest with you? That's one of the worst lines I've ever heard. It's one of the worst thought processes I've ever heard. Why would somebody who hates me, which basically means they hate on me or they ignore me or they always trying to suppress my actions or where I'm headed, why would they motivate me? Because we like trauma. Why does trauma motivate? And I have this problem too. I used to be, hey man, I'm on the basketball court, talk trash to me. You talk trash, man. I love when you talk trash. I've had to like learn how to get away. Like, why is it that your disdain for me gets me moving? I'm not trying to say allow when they say something, don't move. What I'm saying is my movement is not predicated upon those that hate me. It's predicated upon those who love me. Right? And it's not always even predicated upon them. Yeah, you said best thing you did was get away from that energy. You said your only motivation is do better for yourself. You said it's called you not listening, you being arrogant. I'm being arrogant. I don't comprehend. And if that's your way of saying hello, how you doing, Abdel? But help me out if you don't mind. Can you explain it for me? Because I don't even know how to respond. But welcome. Hello, how you doing? Right. So people talking about my haters and my motivators. You have to say to yourself, like, why is it that hate motivates? Why is it that hate motivates? You said you were the same way, didn't say anything, and you would respond with action. You must pay for what you say. Yeah. Yeah, on the basketball court. Yeah, for sure. And I get it, like it's competitive, but you can compete with somebody without them being your center. Like, okay, LeBron James, although he's not the same LeBron he used to, right? LeBron James, at this moment in time, he doesn't compete against the people that are playing now. They don't motivate him. How you doing, Minister Shante? Yes, Sister Renee, very catty. Yeah, and how you doing, cultural? If I didn't say so already. Look, LeBron James is not playing against Nikolai Jokic, right? Even though he did, and you can say he swept him into it, that's not who he's playing against. He's older now. At this point, LeBron James, as he said years and years ago, what decade plus ago now, he's playing against, he's competing against ghosts, people that have retired, right? A decade plus ago, pretty much after 3-4 years, it became very apparent LeBron James is not on the same level that he's on of people he's on the court with. Catch this. We just talked about this yesterday. That you are not my peer. I'm not talking about you specifically, but that was the title of last night's message, right? LeBron James is not. It became very apparent a long time ago that these people he's playing against are not his peers, right? I know people want to say, "Well, Paul Pierce beat him up." Paul Pierce is not LeBron James' peer. Well, Kevin Garnett is not LeBron James' peer. Well, Kobe Bryant. I know you don't want to hear this. He's not LeBron James' peer. At least not in the main media. If you want to say he is, hey, I'm not here to argue because I'm not a fan. I'm not a fanatic. Or that other fan that Kendrick was talking about, right? Either, right? But I'm not a fanatic, so I could care less. I'm just trying to give you an example, right? Because Kobe wasn't playing against the people that were in front of him either. This is why when Kobe scores 81 points, look at that video against Toronto. He never talked trash to anybody. You know why? Because he wasn't competing against them. He's competing to be the best version of himself, and he's competing against those who he's going to be brought up against later on. But you got to get to a certain point to where you're not worried about, oh, I'm trying to, and I know Kobe would say blah, blah, but I'm trying to utterly destroy this and blah, blah, and all this stuff. That's not what it's even about. You get to a certain level, you're not competing against the person in front of you. You start competing to see how far can I take this? How far can I go? Right? There has to be something in you that says, "Oh, this is not about what everybody else says." See, a lot of people, because of trauma bonded, you bonded with traumatic things, or you bonded with your trauma so much, or you see so much in yourself, which really isn't of yourself, but you see so much in the trauma that you've gone through that you keep trying to connect to. You sitting up there talking about my haters and my motivators. My haters don't motivate me. My haters hate, and look, I appreciate the haters, basically for every once in a while when I look through what the haters say, I find um, sound critique. So I don't mind being criticized, right? If it's actual critique, but if it's just somebody saying you this, you that, you blah blah, I've learned to hate the hate. I've learned to ignore the people who are trying to put me down. Once again, hate doesn't mean I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm mad. No, hate means I don't give it my time. You said in your competition you try to be better. Yeah, this day than you were before, right? Yeah, race towards the mark. Endure. Endurance. See, that's the one thing I keep telling people this. I might not be the greatest person with oratory skills that you've ever heard. I might not be the greatest speaker. I might not be the greatest pastor. I might not be the greatest teacher. I believe I'm one of the greatest. I believe I'm one of the greatest of our generation for sure. And I have no problem saying that. And I'm not. If somebody wants to challenge me on it, hey, challenge me on it. If you want to try to tell me I shouldn't have said it and hate on me for saying it, hey, I'm telling you based off of quantitative and qualitative data affects how we do things, who we reach, what's happening with the diaspora, nation building, children being changed, all this stuff. I will tell you that what I do, I'm very great in my lane. And when it comes to what I do, I'm one of the greatest at doing it, not because I'm better, but because the standard I'm under causes me to have to be greater. That being said, right? I don't sit up there and be like every day, hey, what is so-and-so doing? I'm not like, what is Eric Thomas doing? I'll play Eric Thomas for y'all in the heartbeat. Those of you who do early rise of Bible study session, you know we'll listen to Eric Thomas before I preach because I'm not worried about if Eric Thomas is going to make me sound bad, right? We'll listen to great musicians, and I don't even practice like that. And every once in a while, somebody will say, can you go ahead and play on the instrument? And I'll get on there and play, even if I'm not on their level, because I'm not worried about I'm worried about my lane. So-and-so can't play like me. I can't play like them. So the anointing that's on my life is on my life, right? And that actually helps me to not bond with trauma. It helps me. See, watch this. I know as much as you've been talking, competing against everybody else is something that's healthy. Competing against everybody all the time is traumatic. You are not an animal, as much as people try to tell you you are. And even the animals, when sin happened on the earth, they fell short too. Like, never forget that. Like the whole earth, when Adam and Eve messed up, everything got messed up, right? And animals, yes, they compete, but I don't need to compete against an animal. Matter of fact, the animals submit to me, right? Animals are not supposed to be in submission. I'm sorry, human beings, men and women, we don't submit to each other. We submit to the Most High, and we submit to the mission of the Most High. That's why it's not submission or even subwomanship. It is called submission. That being said, animals submit to us. Why do I keep looking to animals to be able to say who I am? See, the trauma, competition, you got to compete. You got to beat the other person. You got to do, no, I don't need to be the best. If I'm in a fight with you, yes, I need to be able to outfight you. But I'm not outfighting you, right? Because I tried to learn how to be better than you. I'm outfighting you because I studied to be great within myself, right? The only limits on becoming the greatest me I can be is going in the gym, so to speak, every day to be better than what I was yesterday. And whatever Yah has given me, and this thing you want to call imagination, right? If you want to call it that, but the vision, really, that Yah has given me that says, hey, learn how to block like this, learn how to move like this, learn how to eat like this, learn how to walk like this, learn speaking like this. Look at etymology in this fashion. Look at this. Look at that. When Yah says all the things, yes, I have the ability to interpret dreams. I don't know if we're going to do it right now, but you could always try to contact us and maybe we can set something up, right? But in all these different things that we're dealing with, right? This comes out of vision. And a lot of you are so busy trying to compete with other people that you haven't actually found what vision is and how to make sure that you have vision, purpose, and value. That every day you know what your vision is. So that means every day now you have a purpose. You have a vision 10 years out. You've broken it down to 5-year vision, right? 2.5-year vision. I don't even know what you go 2.5, then 1.25-year vision, and then you go from there to what? I guess 9-month vision, 4.5-month vision, 2 month, 1 week vision, et cetera, et cetera. Whittle that thing down, and now you know how to live in purpose every day. You have a purpose for every single day, and once you start living in purpose every single day, then you start getting to what? You start getting to your value. I value what I do because I've broken this thing down. I put too much into this, and I live this every day too much. That where I would think I wouldn't let anybody else pull down my value. You see? But once again, people that are in the trauma, a lot of people are into trauma. So a lot of people are into traumatic things. If you're into traumatic things, if you're into traumatic belief systems, if you're into always, there has to be some kind of trauma, some kind of fight, some kind of this or that or whatever, right? Matter of fact, many of you are trauma triggered. You don't move unless there's trauma, right? You stay home until trauma happens, right? I leave to go towards work, my calling. A lot of people, they don't leave unless trauma triggers. when something traumatic happens, then we want to get up and move. How you doing, Yas, my God? How you doing, Yusuf? You know, that's when many people want to move. You could have moved years ago, but it wasn't until it became very apparent that if you don't move, you'll lose, you lose out on life. That all of a sudden, now let's move, let's move, let's move. A mistake, right? That's a mistake. It's a huge mistake. Don't allow trauma to be the reason, right? That the trauma to move you. You shouldn't move based off of trauma. Now, if you're in dealing with trauma, sure, we need to help you to move. What I'm saying is it shouldn't get to the point to where you only move because of trauma. Because what happens is if you'll only move because of trauma, let's flip it around. If you'll only move because of trauma, guess what? You'll stay still because of it as well. How you doing, Into the Deep? Did you catch that? If you will only move because of trauma and things like that have happened in your life, then you'll also stay still because of trauma. Right? Because that's if that is what's going on with you, right? If you're not careful, if you only move when things get traumatic, it usually means you've been stuck because of trauma. Right? Now here's the question. And how you doing, babe? Thanks for being on. Love you very much. My wife is on the Honorable Amma. As always, check her out on TikTok, YouTube, our website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. How you doing? T Proactive. So now here's the next thing. You ready? If trauma is causing you to move, or if trauma is causing you to stay still, have you identified the trauma? As we said earlier, are you on so many painkillers? Are you on so many different things that are designed to make sure that you and I don't have to be held accountable? So many things where we don't have to go down that road. How you doing, Sincere? Thanks for being part of the community. Are you what is your painkiller? Right? What is the reason? See, I'm telling you, it's nostalgic trauma. We're revisiting trauma. We haven't talked about it for a while, but every once in a while, it's all right to look at it. See, look, we are nostalgic about our trauma. You know that some of your family doesn't move correctly, but you still let them do what they do. You won't address it. And if anybody addresses it, then you tell them why they shouldn't address it. You got to ask yourself, why are you so nostalgic about that you will cause them to be your stumbling block and cause them to be stumbling blocks for generations still to come? You know grandmama ain't supposed to do that. You know mama ain't supposed to do that. You know daddy ain't supposed to do that. Grandpappy is not supposed to act like that. How you doing, Demar? Right? You know this, but we allow it because it's nostalgic. We cringe while we allow it. You ever seen somebody? I've watched people's body language to where they're supporting somebody and at the same time doing this. They yelling and doing this and all this stuff and acting, but you can still see they're not like this. You can see like their shoulders are still a little hunched and stuff, but they trying their best to play the role because they go back into being this person that was controlled and manipulated. I've seen people who were at peace and then somebody comes in the room with beef and they're ready to fight for somebody else's beef. Why are you fighting for somebody else's trauma? I'm just asking questions. If the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't, take it off. This might not be for everybody. How you doing, Sister Tanisha? How you doing, Queen Pearl? You said you separated your from the entire family to protect your children from life of constantly being drained. And if that might be necessary sometimes. How you doing, Ebony or Ebony? I still forget if I'm saying it wrong, and I think it's Ebony, right? You said that's why you separate from yours. Anyone that would cause harm. Yeah, sometimes it's necessary. Here we go with the same saying that we've been saying all this time. People say that blood is thicker than water, but that's not the correct saying. What is the correct saying? Blood is thicker than water is not correct. Somebody changed it because, of course, they needed to make an excuse to go ahead and keep up bad behavior. The saying is the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. So those of us who we have covenant with, we have an agreement. This is why our covenant with the Most High, blood covenant, right? The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. This is why you can be born again. When you're born again, you're born into a thicker covenant. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. but we have nostalgic trauma. If it doesn't feel like trauma, it doesn't even feel like love to some people. If it's too peaceful, some people have been so messed up and jacked up in this life that if it's too peaceful, come on, I'm just being honest, right? Let's keep it a buck. If it's too peaceful, people are like, no, I can't trust that. Wait a minute, you don't come with any drama. Wait a minute, you admit the drama that's coming. Wait a minute, you actually do what you say. Like some people call that boring relationships. I've heard so many people now who come off as these very astute teachers and preachers and all this stuff who say, as I've gotten older, I've come to value boring relationships, and everybody starts cheering. And I'm like, well, your relationship ain't got to be boring, but the only reason why you think it's boring is because you believe that trauma is more exciting. And you finally realize, even though you still believe that trauma is more exciting, you've at least said your peace is more important than the trauma. But I'm here to tell you, you can be excited without trauma. How you doing, Brother Vincent? And thank you so much again. I hope you saw my message back to you. Thank you for your help and for getting back to me. How you doing, Shanghai? You see, but there's some people, because you were raised in that, right? Tupac Shakur, East Coast, right? Not Pac, Tupac Shakur, East Coast Tupac Shakur, East Coast, Gumby haircut, parting in his hair, East Coast, very well spoken, high voice, right? Higher voice. Listen to that Tupac Shakur, right? Nobody cared about that Tupac Shakur would listen to him. So part of the persona he put on, he went from the person, the natural person Tupac, to the artificial person, the persona of Tupac of Pac. He left Tupac Shakur and became Pac because he said, y'all won't listen to me. So he went from me against the world, which was already, he was kind of dabbling, but he still wasn't going all the way there. Look at his earlier stuff. Brenda's Got a Baby. I'm not saying he doesn't have any of that stuff. I ain't mad at you. There's still residue of that. And even me and my girlfriend, even though he's talking about it, comparing his gun to his girlfriend, there's a sense of like, protect yourself, certain things like that. But at the end of the day, right, Dear Mama, all this stuff, listen to him back then, but people wouldn't give him the same respect, the same stuff. He leaves, he goes to the West Coast. Now all of a sudden everybody want to listen to him and give him stuff, whatever. Why? Because he's a thug, right? The other Pac, we didn't think it was exciting when he was young, teenage Tupac Shakur speaking about bringing us together. We didn't like that. We didn't give that any credibility. But then all of a sudden, when he says, okay, fine, I'm going to go ahead and act like I'm going to shoot everybody up, now we respect him more. But when he was just Tupac Shakur out here speaking, talking about bringing people together, talking about the government messing with everybody, talking about how we can become greater, talking about classism, talking about how these churches are taking people's money. When he was talking about all those things, right, it wasn't exciting, right? All eyes on me, live the life as a thug until the day I die, all that, right? All of a sudden, right, you can't see me. California love. Now all of a sudden, okay, now we paid attention. It's amazing how much we are attracted to trauma, right? And these laws of attraction. Yeah, Brenda Got a Baby. Yeah, very deep. Or even I forget the name of this song. Please forgive me. What Shorty gonna be said they gonna be a thug. Said they gonna be right. Whatever that is. Forgive me. That one. Just I can't recall the other lyrics to. But you know what I'm saying? Had a lot of stuff where you listen to it, you're like, yo, he's spitting facts, and the stuff is greater than what we know him for. But what did they solicit? What is it that Jimmy Iovine solicited? What is it that Dr. Dre solicits? What is it that Dr. Dre does and Suge Knight, right, did? What is it that we even gave? We looked the other way when Puff Daddy was doing. We looked the other way when R. Kelly was doing. Heck, we want to talk about them. We looked the other way when Jay-Z was doing. My wife and I were just talking about this the other day. We still don't have a problem with Jay-Z being the same thing that you're calling Drake. How you doing, WIT? We still don't have a problem with Jay-Z being the same thing. Because look, as much as y'all want to act like, yeah, she's an adult. Beyonce is way past adulthood now. She's up there. She's an adult for sure, right? She's about as old as I am, or maybe even a little older. I can't recall, right? That being said, Jay-Z started messing with her, right? When she was 18, he was 37. And we know that they were already messing with each other for years before that. And still we don't say anything about it. Because we like trauma. Because we enjoy trauma. How you doing, Sister Keita? It's nostalgic for us. Matter of fact, we don't care if Beyonce. Recall, there's a Alma was Elder Alma was was bringing this back to my remembrance. Actually, I don't even know if I've ever seen this video, but there's a video out there that she was talking about where Beyonce was talking about how she was so happy. This is back then, years ago, how Jay-Z turned her into a woman and this and that or whatever, and we don't even make the connection of grooming. We don't talk about Jay-Z was messing with Aaliyah, right? Right after R. Kelly, who he hung out with and did a whole album with. But we don't care about that, right? Because he's really great at making us feel something. When we say he makes us feel something as an MC, it's about trauma. Yeah, and some feel justified by the trauma, for sure. But it's about trauma. It's about the trauma becomes nostalgic. A lot of our childhood stuff we let roll because we're okay with the trauma. Right? Let's just be honest. There's a lot of people who you had to become comfortable with what they did to you and shove it under the table so that you could exist in a trauma-free life. Problem is, if you put trauma under a table, the problem with that is that if you scoop, how about this? Let's say we swept trauma under the rug. If you sweep trauma under the rug, trauma didn't go anywhere. It's just not cleaned. It's out of sight, it's out of mind, but it's still there. It's still not cleaned up. Let's keep it a buck. Right? A lot of people have learned how to sweep trauma under the rug. Don't bring it up again. Don't talk bad about it. No, I'm not. Don't bring it up. Don't talk bad about it. Right? Like trauma is something that we just say, hey, put it up. What happened in this house stays in this house. I have family that still does this to this day, where jacked up stuff happens in the house. And still, when you say, hey, I saw so-and-so do this. I know so-and-so did that to somebody. I know that somebody's living with that. I know somebody's afraid to come around. Whenever they come around, they tell me every time when they come around, they're afraid of being around so-and-so. And everybody says, no, not this family, not so-and-so. It would never happen. And so we learn how to have these events and stuff where people are afraid to leave their family members around other family members because we never cleaned it up. We just swept it up. I'm sorry, what'd you say, Brother Dwayne? Said nobody is exempt from the laws of the Most High. It makes no sense to fight and compete amongst ourselves when we are on the same mission. Yeah. He said, and it gets on everyone who enters. Yeah. And we allow these secrets, we allow these things to fester. But then here, watch this. But you say, this is why we say law is important. Even if you don't want to follow it, you better learn it because you better comprehend what you say the New Testament is based on, even though somehow it's not lawful. If you're going to be a living sacrifice, you know a sacrifice can't come before the Most High if it has any blemishes. Right? If you know about how sacrifice works, the sacrifice has to be without blemish. This is why it says with you, as who is going to be married to the Most High, or if you are a wife, a husband's responsibility is to do what? To make sure that you are washed, to make sure that you are free from spot or wrinkle or from blemish. Correct? Right? So you can't come in to marriage with the Most High. You can't offer yourself up. An offering is something that is going to be covering as well. You can't offer yourself up and you can't be covered. Right? You can't bring something before the Most High Yah, and you yourself still are dirty with blemishes. But we have a community that's been raised. We have a diaspora that's been raised that what happens in this house stays in this house. And this is where it comes from, really. I know people don't want to go here. Obviously, there's the curses and everything, but let's just talk about somewhat more modern than going all the way back to when Israel was still dealing with Rome and before then. Let's talk about chattel slavery. In chattel slavery, your little boys had to deal with slave masters who did all types of inappropriate things to them. The men had to deal with slave masters that did all types of inappropriate things. Matter of fact, not just the slave masters that were men, but the slave masters that were women. Right? I know we don't talk about that part enough, but it's true. How you doing, Cole? So if this stuff is going on, let's have some honest dialogue. So when this stuff started happening and they start getting messed with, what happens is now you have grown men who either were being messed with their whole life or got to do something when they were men, who now have this thing where they start taking that spirit that's upon them and putting it on others. And so now you have generations of it. And what happens is, hey, we know why this is happening. You know what happened? It's just a side effect of what's happened to them. And so because that's what's happened to them, hey, we still got to love them where they are. What happens in this house stays in this house, right? But we're not chattel slaves. At least some of us are not. We finished with being that. We're not slaves up here anymore. So when that's happening, somebody got to call that out. When the slave master did it to your child, you couldn't stop the slave master. Some of you could and didn't. Some of you could even if you wanted to. How you doing, Minister Dr. Tamar? Right? But some of you couldn't have done anything even if you wanted to. You would have had your life taken, but you would have tried to help, but you still wouldn't have stopped it. I get it. I'm not here to shame anybody. Right? That being said, though, we are not under those same situations. And what happens in this house stays in this house is foolishness. Right? Now, look, if it's what happens in this house stays in this house, there are certain things we can take care of, but not that. Or if we're going to handle it in house, then we're going to handle it in house to where there's punishment, to where that person will never even dream of doing that again. Right? It's like this whole thing that you got in of snitching. You don't want to snitch to police. You know why you don't want to snitch to police? That's chattel slavery. Guess where police officers come from? Guess where those police badges come from? You can look this up with your Houston police badge, with your Illinois police badge, with a whole bunch of your badges. Guess where your police badge comes from for your city, for your state, whatever that you own. And thank you for the love. Appreciate it. You said something like it to survive the thoughts and feelings forcing themselves to like it and get through it. Mm-hmm. Guess where it came from? Render a guess if you don't mind. Anybody. Where do you think those police badges came from? Some of you I know this. Grand Rising Natural, how you doing? Patty rollers, okay. Overseers were not quite where we're going, but overseers have a lot to do with a lot of stuff too, for sure. Right? They came from slave patrolmen. It's what caused snitches to get stitches, right? But it's slave patrolmen. Slave patrolmen. They had the same badges. They worked for the same states. Yeah, slave catcher badges. It's the same thing. The slave patrolmen became the police officers. The same slave patrolmen that used to make sure they kept up the policies of chattel slavery are the same police officers who keep up the policy of capitalism. And we talked about it before. Capitalism and chattel slavery always existed at the same time. Capitalism just says focus on capital more, but the capital ultimately is the chattel. Chattel slavery says focus on the chattel more, but ultimately the chattel leads to the capital. Right? It's the same system under two different names with slave masters on both ends, whether they want to call themselves kings or lords or not. Same thing. Same type of structure coming from common law in England and all that stuff, right? And these people so the only reason why you say you don't snitch to police is because even if your people are doing some foul stuff, why would you put them into the hands of the slave master knowing what the slave master would do? So maybe you handle it on your own, or maybe you make sure that you keep them somewhere else, but you don't snitch because you know the slave master or the slave patrolman will do way worse. If somebody's going towards freedom but is still doing some wild stuff, it's better for them to, in your mind, I'm not even saying this is right. This is a heavily layered conversation. But if we're running towards freedom, if we're running towards the North Star, right? Using the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper to guide us. And we going home towards the North Star, right? Crossing over the River Jordan. Then on our way there, somebody's got some really wild stuff that they're doing. In our mind, we go, even if they're doing some wild stuff, maybe if we get them outside of slavery, maybe if they get it to the land of Canaan, maybe if they get to freedom, maybe if they can go across the Ohio River and live different for a little bit, maybe they'll come out of it. So we won't snitch. Because we know what happens if we snitch. Not only will they get jacked up, they're going to go right back. And people like Harriet Tubman taught us that she would rather take your life than have you go back. There were people who tried to act like they were going to go back on her. She said she would take the shotgun and put it in their face and say, try it if you want to. You'll be free here, right? Before you go back and be a slave. So in our mind, we still doing the whole thing. Don't snitch. See the trauma? How the trauma, we bonded to the trauma as a community and don't even think about that. Before we even get to, we're afraid of what our friends and family would say. We think that we're still doing the same thing generationally that came from, if we're trying to get to freedom, don't snitch and cause somebody to go back to where they just came from. Don't put them right back in the slave patrolman's hand. Don't put them right back in the police officer's hands. You say it is evident when you get pulled over, the questions are the same. Where are you going? Stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. Right? Where are you going? License and registration, because if you were free, you were supposed to have that stuff, even though slave patrolmen would still a lot of times, arrest you and take you down south and pretend that you didn't have anything. Like the same questions, exactly. Right? How you doing, Dwayne? Thanks for being part of the community. But we have this issue. What happens in this house stays in this house. Don't snitch. Don't tell the police. Because in your mind, you're thinking they're going back. But watch this. I'm just going to be honest with you. For real, for real. Anybody in here try to even think you're going to put your hands on my son? And you better hope. Because if I find out about it, right? If I find out about it, I'm be honest with you. So if I find out about it, first thing I'm going to do, I saw somebody have to do this, and it helped them because they were taking the person's life if they got there first. So I learned this from seeing it happen in real time. First thing I'm going to do if I find out you even attempted to put your hands on my son is, I promise you, I'm calling the police myself. And I'm going to tell them, I'm headed to wherever this person is, right? And and it's going to take me this much time. If you beat me there, great on you. Because once I get there, I'm trying to get to that person. Right? If you don't beat me there, you might have to deal with me later on. But I'm going to give that person a chance. By the way, that's lawful, if you don't know. In the kingdom, in Israel, when we were out in the wilderness, if somebody did, especially if it was by accident, but even if somebody did commit murder, they were actually given an opportunity to go out on the outskirts of the camp, and there were places they could go to be cleansed. And so if they could make it there before the family got their hands on them, it wasn't always an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. That's scripture. So I'll give you the opportunity. I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm just letting you know. I'll call the police myself. Hey, look, I'm coming for him. You might want to go ahead and get to him first. Because if you don't get to him first, I'm just letting you know we're going to have some problems. And some of you would say, oh, well, this is wrong. But, that's a child. That's innocent. Yeah, those sanctuary cities are cities that were sanctuary. Yeah, right. And people go, no, why would you do that? Why would you pull? And we get into this weird situations. Why would you pull the black man down, this and that? That's not a man in our culture. A man would never do what R. Kelly did. A man would never do what, we don't do that as men. You're not a man. I don't care if you're an adult male. I'm talking about a man. I'm talking about Adam. I'm talking about somebody trying to be a son of David, Bar at David, right? Or a son of David. I'm talking about a man. Like in our culture, men don't do that. Right? The same person who will go to a church and preach against, and look, I'm not with homosexuality. We don't believe in it, right? It doesn't mean that we disrespect the humanity of the homosexual, but we know that homosexuality is a sin. That being said, right, in our culture it is. That being said, even if that makes you upset, even if that, whatever. That being said, you get on them and will preach sermons down about them and how they should be canceled and all this stuff and talk poorly about them, but you got all the way blown out PEDOs. You got people who are aborting their children. You don't believe me? 2 of your pastors in a row at the same church in Georgia. What is that? Rebirth, whatever, down there. It was the bishop who was messing with them boys. And then after that, they brought in Jamal Bryant, who came from Baltimore. It was offing his babies, and then got caught because some of the women he was cheating with his wife with, he wouldn't do child support for them, and they wouldn't get an abortion. He got caught. But you'll preach a message about it, about how these people who are, you know what, shouldn't be blah blah whatever. Something wrong. Yeah, masculinity is not toxic because in our culture, things that are toxic are masculine. Yeah, somebody who's masculine wouldn't do. Masculinity is never toxic. Somebody sags their pants, that's not masculine. The only reason why people sag their pants like that is because they were in prisons to where if you sag your pants, you belong to another man. That's not masculinity, that's hyperfemininity. Matter of fact, that's not masculinity, that's toxic because you're actually forcing men. You're R-wording them. How you doing, Monique? Do you hear what I'm saying? That's not masculinity. Where was that at? On the West Coast, they were doing that in prison. San Quentin. Is it San Quentin, West Coast? Forgive me. I'm not sure if that penitentiary is I think it's Cali, right? Isn't San Quentin Cali? I could be wrong on that, right? But wherever it is, that's where that started. Sagging your pants, you belong to somebody. That's like when you see people walking around and somebody holding on to somebody's pockets, and people come out of prison and start to teach that. You know, there's grandparents, there's grandmothers I've seen whose grandsons hold their pockets. That's something that came out of a prison mentality, where if you held somebody's pocket in prison, you belong to them. Now you got a grandmother so warped that she makes her grandson hold her pocket, and wherever she goes, he better hold on to that pocket. That's why I said, going back to what we were talking about earlier, the traumatized woman will start acting out and certain things will start showing. You're like, where did she get that from? Because she wasn't protected. But she says, hey, I got to do whatever it takes to be protected and to get affection on some level. Hey, I'll go ahead and force it if I have to. What do you think that does to the grandson who has to walk around holding grandma's pocket? Hold on my pocket, little N-word. What do you think that does to little boys? They raised like that. And little girls too. I'm sorry, you said what? My grandma did it to us. Yeah, that came from somewhere. By the way, even hold on to my pocket was something they did on the plantation. Sisters, I've already talked about before. If you want to go into actual Israelite culture, you would recognize that there were many sisters that walked around with revealing stuff, or what you call revealing, or what they call revealing nowadays. You'd be surprised at what you wore. You had your ankle bracelets, so your ankles were showing. You had stomach showing sometimes. You had earrings. You had nose rings. Sometimes you had them connected to each other. Right? If you knew your culture, you would know that you were not as over sexualized. And when you became over sexualized, that's when you became covered up. Because unfortunately, men can't handle you where you're supposed to be. But that wasn't also because of that, was because of men who over sexualized you. Once they got you, they thought you were their property. They said cover from head to toe. That's not biblical. That being said, right, because a lot of men can't handle you being where you're supposed to be, right? So, but I do tell sisters, be careful what you wear, because unfortunately, you deal with a lot of hypersexualized men, over-sexualized, and a lot of hypersexualized women, because a lot of you are not wearing stuff because of culture. A lot of you are wearing things because you're trying to show yourself. Even if you don't think that it is, you forget somebody designed your clothing. And so whoever designed your clothing, right, went through trauma already sexually, and therefore designed stuff bonded with the trauma. It manifested into what you're wearing, and you don't even think about the fact that why is it saying this, right, for something that's made for a woman with extreme bust? Why is it saying this particular saying right here, where people would be looking at stuff that where your areolas would be? We don't even think about it because we're so over sexualized. And then if somebody says something about it, we say, how dare you, don't tell a woman about her body. But what is the spirit of that? I just told you, if a sister wears something that you think is revealing, it might not even be revealing, but you don't even think culturally, why would somebody wear that? Why would somebody wear the ankle bracelet? Why would a sister have the short stuff? By the way, even when they wear the short stuff or whatever, they're supposed to have shorts underneath it. It's not just supposed to be you just sitting up there with everything showing. We can see your prints and all that stuff. I know we're not supposed to preach and talk like this, but let's just be honest, right? It's not supposed to be where we see where there is nothing left to the imagination. It's not even vain imagination. It's not even empty imagination, because there's nothing to the imagination. There's nothing to the imagination. How is there any imagination when I can see everything? Hey, how you doing, one? Is it? I'm just saying, right? But what is the point? What is the reason that you're wearing it? Right? I'm not just wearing this randomly, right? This is made for a particular reason. We don't wear fringes randomly. They're worn for a particular reason. If you do cover your head, because your hair is already your covering, but if you decide to cover your head anyways on top of that, then what is your reason for it? Do you even know why? You don't have to walk around all day with your head covered. And even depends on the context, because are we talking about your head as your husband? Are we talking about, right? Are you covering him with prayer? Are we talking about your head with the scarf? Are we talking about your crown, which is your hair? And even in that, is that a cultural statement or is that First Corinthians? What's the context of it? How you doing, Brother TJ? Our Father's peace upon you. Cover your head. Doesn't even mean what we think it means. What's the religiosity? Now, everybody has religion. Religion just means what you repetitively do as a legion of people, or religion just means what you are bound to over and over and over again. So what is your religion based off of? We have religion. You should have religion. Everybody has religion. If you don't believe in a higher power, if you don't believe in the spirit, if you don't believe in spiritual manifestation, if you don't believe that something can come from nothing, if you don't believe in Yahweh Alacham, even if you don't believe in Allah, you don't believe in Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, if you don't believe in any of it, you still have a religion. Religion just means what you're doing. What's your habits? And do you share habits with other people? That's religious. And for a lot of people, your religion is traumatic. You trauma bound. You know, people come to churches and dance for hours and dance to the victory and then go back out and have no power. And then come back and dance to the victory again next week and then go out and have no power. And then come back again and dance to the victory again. After a while, we got to start asking, are you victorious? And why is it that the only works you have that go with your faith is dancing, but nobody said maybe you should start working on your trauma? How is it that you know more about the Baptist two-step than you do about psychology? Come on, help me in this place. Come on, Holy Spirit, have your way. How is it that you know more about dancing to the victory? I'm not saying dancing is not important. Dance away. Dancing is powerful. But how is it you know more about dancing than you do about psychology? You know, psyche or psyche in the Greek literally just means the soul. Yeah, we're not authorized, right? I'm not saying don't dance. There's gonna be some times where y'all be surprised with Pastor Kofi, and I can't even really dance like that. But I'll get excited and I would dance to the glory of the Lord because I'm not worried about the haters, like I said earlier. So you'll hate on the moves, and right, and I might even be a little stiff sometimes before I start getting it going. But I will. But I'll dance to the victory in a heartbeat. I'll get behind the piano or get on the bass or I'll get on the guitar, even though I can barely play it, or I'll get on I'll get on whatever. I'll bring out the shofar. I'll take out a brass instrument. I'll praise him with the tinkling cymbals. Whatever it is, I will praise his name. That being said, though, it's important to give him glory even in that. That being said, I at least learned how to make sure my mind was right before I praised him, right, with the sultry heart. How you praising them without a mind of praise? They honor me with they praise me with their lips. They honor me with their mouths, but their passion, their love is far from me. That's what the Messiah said. Yeah, there's got to be a standard of praise. Many people praise, yeah, on Sunday, on Saturday, on whatever day. You choose a day. Many people will come and praise. Some of you will praise him today and never think why. It doesn't matter why. What you talking about? What is your standard of praise? Yah wants to look at your heart. There'll be many people who say that they fed our people and they clothed our people, right? And they gave them something to drink and they visited them in prison. And they saw about them when they were strangers and they saw about them in the hospital. But Yah will say, get away from me, you workers of iniquity, those who are on the opposite side of the law. Get away from me, you workers of iniquity. Why? Why? Because I never knew you. To know means to be intimate. If two people in the Bible know each other, it means that they come together with the purpose of creating fruit. They are married because sex is marriage, marriage is sex. He says, you were never married to me. You doing all this stuff in my name as if you and I actually lay down with each other. Wouldn't that be a sad thing to have been coming to the house of the Lord your whole life and never slept with him? I know we're not supposed to think in minds like that, but that's what it's talking about. To know, K-N-O-W, means to be intimate with, to be married to have sex with. He's saying that many people will say they're doing these things. They live in my house. They visit my house. We might even live in the same place, but they have me sleeping on the couch. And they always having everybody else come into the bedroom. Go see. When you look at Revelation chapter 2 and 3, look at how he talks about the description of the whore of Babylon. Doesn't really call her that there, right? But we know what it is. We know what time it is, right? And how he describes what's going on there. And then even talks about the fact that, hey, in that same Revelation 2 and 3 says, but behold, I stand at the door and knock. Many of you don't know that's a knocking ceremony. That's when he's coming back looking for the 10 virgins, if you will. It's a continuation of Matthew 25 and Matthew 24 and John 14. Beloved, let not your heart be troubled. If you believe in the Father, also believe in me. It's a continuation of those conversations. That's why he's having it with John again, because John was present at these conversations. And John is keeping the holy day. And in the midst of him keeping the holy days, he reveals himself again. And he says, hey, I want you to go ahead and tell my people this. And he starts talking about things in marriage. He says, you lost your first love. The assembly of Ephesus is dealing with the Artemis spirit. You guys recall this? We went over this. The Artemis spirit is a spirit where literally she is supposed to be the one that is romantic. That's why a lot of you like to be romantic and never like to be loved. Romantic doesn't mean dating. Romantic doesn't mean like romantic literally is Roman antics, how the Romans did things. Right? So if the Romans had a vomitorium, when you go to your sports events, you have vomitoriums. That's romantic. It doesn't mean that somebody loves you. The reason why you like candlelit dinners and you call it romantic is because in Rome, a lot of people didn't have money like that. And if you could make sure you had light at the night when it was time to eat, that was a big deal. So if you could have candles like that, especially if you were poor or something, if you could see your food, oh man, that was awesome. So guess what? You go out to a romantic place, but guess what? I like to see my food all the time. So I don't need the romantic turn down the lights to eat food. I don't need that. I like to see what I'm eating. Right? I want to make sure that it's pure. The Romans, the reason why you like the hole, they say the hole in the wall and all that stuff, and you can smell all this stuff or whatever in the background, and there's so much smoke because they had to do a lot of stuff. Their apartments, you get this romanticized version of what's romantic. A lot of the Romans that were living in so-called apartments, they were living in caves. And as they're living in caves, not all of them, but a lot of them, enough of them to where we could document this and see that your chamber pots and all this were just being thrown outside. It was a very dirty place to be. You have restaurants where the bathroom is right there and the smoke is going through. This is something that constantly and consistently was there in culture, right? It's not a new thing. This is something that's been there. How you doing, Silver the Wordsmith, right? This is something that was consistent for them. So you say, oh, okay, I want to go ahead and go to the hole in the wall. I want to go to a dive. I want the smoke everywhere. They had the smoke everywhere because they were in the cave. And the lights were down because there were no lights. Maybe you had one light. Maybe you had a candle. Everybody was around the candle. That's an Italian thing because the Italians are what? Romantic. So the Italians like that. That's very Italiano. And no shade. It just is what it is. They like that because that's what they had. And you do some research, start looking at the Scots. The Scots had people who were trying to claim that they were romantic, or some of the Romans that ran away when their stuff broke down and they started marrying into certain families and stuff. So they like some of that stuff too, and just keep following the stuff. The British, they were the people that were conquered by Romans. Septimius Severus, a black emperor, so it's not as simple as color anyways. He was an African emperor, but Septimius Severus, he goes over and he's the reason why England has the infrastructure and the roads that they have till this day. Above ground and underneath it. Romantic. In your mind, though, you're so much into stuff that you don't even realize is traumatic. You're trying to have relationships saying, I want my spouse to give me what somebody who couldn't afford to have the best things in life has, and I want them to spend hundreds of dollars a week or a month to ensure that I sit in something that actually is abject poverty. Nostalgic trauma rears its ugly head again. But we're victorious. We don't comprehend the mindset. We don't care about studying. We don't care about researching and saying what is culturally relevant to us. Right? What is culturally relevant to us? You said nonsense to pieces, right? Nonsense tearing us apart. What is culturally relevant to us? We did things for a reason. I come to find out everything in the scrolls that we did, it actually caused us to have great health, great wealth, great love, take care of the poor, to honor Yah, to be right spiritually, to renew within us the right spirit. All these things did things for a reason, a particular purpose. They weren't just random. This is one of the things that you got to be careful about too. Some of you want randomness. What do you call it? You don't call it you want a random relationship. You say you want when you don't want to know what's coming up next. I don't use some of these terms enough to even recall them as much anymore. I get stunned a little bit, or I get stalled a little bit on these words. What is it? You guys like what is it y'all call it? Help me out. Sisters usually say it more than men. Spontaneous. There we go. Spontaneity. I want a spontaneous, but what is spontaneity? What is spontaneous? You know, like if something spontaneously combusts, it means that it kind of came out of nowhere, right? And would you like structure or spontaneity? Right? Would you like structure or spontaneity? Now, this is not as simple as only male or female, even though I know this will probably be taken that way. And we could say maybe it usually lends itself to one person. Is one side is going to be on one side or the other, but most people don't realize that if I give you spontaneity, you're asking for me to not have structure. So if you really what you would like is maybe to be surprised, sure, but that also means I have to have structure to surprise you. And I'm somebody who, even though I've been off a little bit, we've been much better. Today was not a great day for us, admittedly so, right? But I've been much better getting back to certain things. But time is a big deal, right? And because it's structure, right? Time is a huge deal. It's structure. But a lot of people who've gone through trauma start making excuses for never being on time. And it's interesting, you know that time's a big deal because you'll be on time for your job, or at least timely enough to where they won't fire you. You'll be on time for your appointment, especially if you're concerned. But then when it comes to your life, right, your everyday life and those around you, you are not structured. You are not disciplined or a disciple concerning time. Yeah, there's no security and spontaneity, no surety. Yeah. So when you're saying spontaneous, you're like, I just want to be, and I just want to be able to wake up and hey, it's the weekend, and I just want to be able to say, let's go for a 5-hour trip. But if I don't plan for a 5-hour trip, it could be one of the worst experiences in the midst of spontaneity. Right? There's something traumatic. Now, what you're saying is that I'm tired of the whole hum. I'm tired of doldrums. I'm tired of this. Well, then fine. Let's plan. Let's have a mission. Let's have a vision. Let's say this is the vision for us to be able to start making sure that every weekend we can go on a 5-hour trip and start making plans for it. That means also, too, you're going to have to think about gas, right? Because for many vehicles, 4 hours means that you're out of gas. So you're going to have to at least have enough money for the gas tank, probably twice, because you got to fill it up once and then fill it up again, right? By the way, if it's a 5-hour trip, you actually need 3 things of gas, right? Because you got to fill it up once, fill it up again, and then make sure that you got enough to make it back, right? So you got to, what's gas now for? Let's just be cheap. So you're going to need at least 150. That's cheap, depending on where you are in the United States of America right now, right? So just say you got to have $150 US just for the gas. You're going to have to make sure that if you're going on a trip or during the weekend, that are you going to stay somewhere? Because that's money too. If you're not going to stay somewhere, are you going to make sure that you can rest? If you're going somewhere, have you planned it out? If you're leaving, would you like to make sure that you get as much out of the day as you can? Are you going to leave 3 or 4 right before the rising of the sun to ensure that you can go ahead and have enough time? Are you going to make sure that there's food that's made so that you can not only have something in your excursion while you're out, but also you can make sure that you have something, that you don't have to pay for extra food? Or are you going to be balling like that? If that's the case, are you going to make sure that how much is your hotel stay going to be? Or if you're going to do a bit or Airbnb or something like that, how much is that going to be? This is all what? Structure. Spontaneity says, let's just figure it out. Why would you want to just figure it out on a whim? Right? Sisters are supposed to be given direction and lay down law. The law that you give is what? Spontaneity. Is a structure. Excuse me. The law that you give sisters, it helps the structure. Direction you give helps what? To make sure that you have the pieces to structure. And both of you should be supporting and defending each other's structure. There should be no spontaneity in relationship. If you want spontaneity, go to the club and, hopefully, you wake up next to somebody that was worth sleeping with. That's spontaneity. Do you hear what I'm saying? That's spontaneity. If you want spontaneity, spin the bottle and go in the closet and kiss some random stranger. That's spontaneity. Y'all doesn't want spontaneity. Y'all says, I knew you before the foundations of the world. That means there was nothing spontaneous. The only changes that happen is because you messed up or somebody did something imperfect. But my will for you was already decided. And every time you make a move, see, I don't react to your movements. When you make a move, I'm already in the past, the present, and the future simultaneously in every single day and every single way you can think of. And even if some of you think dimensions, fine, put them there too. Every single way you can look at something or think about something, I exist in it. So whenever you make a move, right, it doesn't change where I am. All I do is I just tweak where I am. It doesn't change where I am. I'm going to get you to the same result no matter what. Right? So you have to, so Yah is not spontaneous in any way, shape, or form. It seems spontaneous to you because you're not with his plan. But he is not spontaneous in any way, shape, or form. So if he's not spontaneous, then why would you want a spontaneous relationship with a woman or a man of Yah? Why would that be something that you're looking for? Because it's not his will. It's not who he is. That's part of the problem right there. A man who is spontaneous is a man without a mission. And a man without a mission is what? A dangerous man. I want a man that just goes out and does, mission, sister, mission, sister, mission, right? A man without a mission is a dangerous man. That's how y'all be getting in trouble, sisters. Watch this. Here's spontaneity. You ready? Because y'all be liking spontaneity. Girl, I see you over there looking sexy and everything. Why don't you go ahead and spend some time with me or whatever? I'm going to take you out tonight. You do whatever you want to do. We'll be spontaneous. The night's on me. And then at the end of the night, he expect a return. Come on, sisters. You know I ain't lying. He expect a return. And you be like, what kind of woman do you take me for? A spontaneous woman. If I do spontaneous stuff, I expect spontaneous results. But he's also structured. See, he's structured in his mind. He's like, I'm going to give you chaos. And in the midst of the chaos, I expect for you to go ahead and do something chaotic with me. But he structured it that way. He's doing some structured chaos stuff. You talking about spontaneity. He's not spontaneous. Talking about, no, this has been my best friend. We just been friends for 50 years. We just been friends for 50. That brother has been in the friend zone for 50 years. Had you given him any opportunity to lay down with you? Some of y'all been there, done that. You go through something and all of a sudden this guy, and you've been friends, and all of a sudden y'all lay down and this and that, and you're like, I can't believe that happened over there. He's been waiting on that. That wasn't spontaneous for him. He's had a plan. I know y'all don't want to hear that. And look, it would be a little different if we were trained to be Israel and we lived together as a nation and we actually did this stuff on a regular basis where we held each other to a certain standard. That brother ain't been held to no Israelite standard. That's not your friend. Not like that. No, we're just friendly. You don't comprehend. I have sisters that will try to take me to task on this. Pastor, you going too far. It's okay for a man and a woman to be friends. If they're not married, listed. Be careful. I'm just telling you how brothers think. And I promise you, you ask most of the brothers on here. Matter of fact, I'll put it like this. If there's a brother on here that disagrees, make himself known. I'm not even trying to hold you. If there's a brother on here that disagrees with me, right? And I'll go ahead and say, hey, because they disagree with me, I'll let it be known. Hey, I promise you, there might not be one. I'm just going to keep it a buck with you. I promise you, there might not be one brother listening to me right now or listens later on that will come in here and tell you that they have women that they are friends with, that if you know, that they would, that there's no kind of, what would we call it? Not anxiety, but any kind of angst or whatever, any kind of, what would you call it? Sexual tension, right? I'm just trying to tell you. I know some of y'all don't want to hear it. I'm just trying to tell you. I have sisters that will get so upset at me. They'll get so upset with me. How dare you say, I've got plenty of men that are friends. Look, back in the day, forgive me, I'm not trying to talk bad about it, but I'm just keeping it a buck with you. Back in the day, the lesbian homies would tell you, no, that's my man's and this and that or whatever. I promise you, that dude that's around you, if you would allow him to smash, he would smash. Matter of fact, I promise you, I'm not saying all of them, but I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of the lesbian homies were known to be sisters that were smashing on the low, right? Especially if they wasn't getting no girls, because they have women needs too. If you want to keep it there, let's just keep it a buck, right? It's your nostalgia, though. That's a traumatic thing. Something's happened to you where you're trying to have a friendship out of pocket. What do you call them, Klingons? I never, right? I see the wordplay. I see the wordplay, right? But I'm not trying to just be this to like act like I'm all that, or I know something you don't know, or this and that. I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to tell you straight up. Like, that's how the thing works, right? And a man's mind is, a man is connected to his wife. He's trying to find a wife. If he's not trying to find a wife, he's trying to be alone. I promise you, if that man does not have a wife, he's trying to be alone, or he's trying to find a wife. That's how we're wired. That's what we're called to be. We're called to have babies. We're called to sow seed until we take our last breath. A man who can't sow seed is a man that is not healthy. We're called to keep giving life. We're called to keep causing things to be a man. Look, I'm thinking about Elder Alma all the time, right? Out of respect for our relationship, there's certain things that's bedroom talk, pillow talk, that you'll never know. I think about my wife all the time. Do you hear what I'm saying? Right? It doesn't. So I'm just being honest with you, right? So just because I'm married doesn't mean I don't think about it. It means that I'm thinking about my wife. But look, I'm thinking about it all the time. That's why I don't mind telling you, not only is she my wife, but she's the sexiest woman that I know. All the stuff that I say about her, and she's beautiful, she's awesome, she's divine. I think about her like that all the time. And I focus on it to make sure that there's no room for me to focus on any other girl. So yeah, if I'm talking to a sister or something like that, for sure, I can talk to you, I can compartmentalize things like that. But as far as us hanging out and going to the store, like people talking about, oh yeah, we just went to the store and this and that or whatever, and I feel comfortable enough, I even be trying stuff on in front of him. So that man is trying to, if he had an opportunity to, I promise you. I'm just trying to tell you how brothers say. How you doing, Sister Austin? Please forgive me if I didn't say so earlier. I'm just trying to help somebody out. Don't get caught up. Shoot, some of y'all can tell me. So I know there's several sisters, you already told me your stories about how you got caught up in this, right? I'm just trying to tell you, as much as all these brothers, hey sis, and this and that. Look, well, y'all wouldn't know this person anyways, but I'm still, look, when I was in the shelter, this got to be 20, I don't know when, back in the day, over 15, 16, 17 years, something like that ago. When I was in the shelter, peep game, there was a brother that told me, be careful. It was an old head for me at that time. He probably would have been maybe coming up on 50, but like, you know, he was, and forgive me, I'm not trying to say who looks this and that. I'm trying to tell you, like, he was the stereotypical, like, sisters thought he was fine, you know, had the clean had the clean fade and everything, light skin, blue eyes, turn green in the sun type thing, like all that stuff, right? Like had this stuff, and he had to tell me, he had to be like, bro, when you have sisters that be giving you all this stuff, he's like, be careful when you get the sisters. He was like, because you know what happens with us, because you know where our mind is. He said, be careful when you're around that sister that be like, oh, hey, praise Jesus, this and that, all these things or whatever. Like, oh, look at what the Lord has done. He was showing me the code. He was showing me the code. He was like, you know, when they say this, it leads to this. And when they say this, it leads to this. And he was telling me stories. He was like, man, shoot, there was one girl, man, I wasn't even thinking like that. I was trying my best not to, but you know, like he was coming out of drug stuff and some other things, but he was like trying to get his life together. He said, man, like I'm sitting up there, and next thing I know, I was over her house and we was doing, I won't even say what they were doing because it was crazy, right? But he was like, it was stuff that you wouldn't expect the woman of God. And by the way, your bedroom is undefiled, but I'm just saying the woman of God, especially when I just met you in the service. Just be careful with that spirit. I know somebody, you might be innocent. I swear, you're innocent, this and that. But I'm just trying to tell you, men aren't thinking like that. Right? Men aren't thinking like that. There's some men, why am I saying this? We're talking about trauma today. Some men are literally around you just waiting for trauma. Even if we're not doing it on purpose, we've been taught to do it. Some people walk you home hoping that you'll cry so that they'll go ahead and finally be able to get a hug that they've always wanted and show you that they're there for you. They don't even mean to want to try and do you dirty. They're just like, I hope that something bad happens to her so I can console her. There are people that think like this. You said some women come to church and trying to attract the man, praising and bouncing. Sure. Just like there's a lot of men that come there and they be wearing them outfits and all that stuff too. You know? But yeah, sure, that stuff happens. Right? I'm just trying to tell you, we don't realize. Like, so I can talk to you and everything, but I promise you, like, if we out or something like that, it's going to be in public. My wife is going to be around. And if you're going to talk about phone calls, this and that or whatever, yeah, sure. But there's certain things we're not going to talk about. There's certain things my wife will know about. Why? Because I recognize how I'm created. And even though I didn't go in there with that intent, you best believe every single count, like when y'all text that number that goes direct to me, when y'all text that number, my wife sees every single text. Why? Because I don't want something to be misconstrued or even give a doorway to the devil, right? I'm not going to allow anybody's trauma, yours or mine, to be an excuse. I'm just trying to help somebody out. We're so into trauma, we don't recognize there are men that are literally hanging around you. There are men that will do things that you swear they went so far out of their way and they went so far this, and I can't believe that they did blah, blah. Yeah, they do that because they're like, maybe she never seen it before. And maybe she's been so traumatized. Maybe she's been so marginalized. Maybe she's never had somebody that's been that consistent that if I just give her a little bit of consistency, I got her. And then from that point on, I'll treat her like everybody else did. Right? That's the way that it works. Especially now, brothers. Can I say this for you? Brothers, especially if you brothers that have had, and sisters deal with this too, even though we want to act like sisters don't deal with this. But can I talk to the brothers? Brothers, especially if you've been dealing with pornography for a long time, you better make sure that you got something set up. Oh yeah, this might be triggering, right? But that trauma triggers, and people don't mind when that trauma triggers. Brothers, if you got pornography issues or came out of it or spent a significant time in your life dealing with that stuff or whatever, or if you somebody who was having so much sex and going from person to person, there's a lot of sisters, y'all did that too. You better make sure that you got some safeguards, because your flesh needs time to heal from trauma just like your spirit does. Can I say that again? You're three beings, right? You're three in one. Your flesh needs to heal, your psychology needs to heal, and your spirit needs to heal. And you better give time. You better make sure you got a system in place for all three. You better make sure you have something in place for all three. Take time out to come up with something to protect you in all three facets. I know the enemy doesn't want you to hear this. You might not want to hear this, but this is real talk. See, you're dealing with trauma and you haven't taken time out to say, let me make sure that I got a spiritual plan. I got a psychological or soul plan, and I've got a body plan or a physical plan. You know, when you fast and you turn your plate down, you're supposed to then focus spiritually on fasting from certain things at the same time and focusing on the Most High, and then looking at your soul and your soul ties and fasting from some of those as well. A lot of you just turn your plate up and never think about your soul or your spirit. How you doing, Etherin? Oh, can I say that again? How you doing, Veronica? Right? If I'm fasting and I turn my physical plate down, then I have to think about what's going on in my soul that must now get turned down, and I got to separate from as well, which means I also have to talk about what's going on in my spirit. This is why when we did the 40 days of removing leaven from our home, we always gave you a reminder. As you turn your plate down, or as you get rid of the leaven in your home, always recall that leaven represents what? Sin. Sin is anything that causes you to do what? Miss the mark. And then if you notice in the series, we dealt with what? A lot of things dealing with your psychology, your soul, your nachevash. We dealt with the soul ties, right? Because the soul actually ties the flesh to the spirit. And if anything is being tied to that flesh and spirit, or therefore your soul, that shouldn't be there, you're going to get messed up. It is an entire fasting of every facet of your life. If you fast, watch this. If you're somebody who fasts from food, but you keep cussing everybody out, you're still not really fasting. If you're somebody who fasts from food, but you still doing drugs along the way, you're not really fasting. If you're somebody who fasts from cursing, but don't make sure that there's certain things you take out of your diet, you're not really fasting. There's some study, there's some research that you must do with this. It's not just one thing. Sure, that's a great beginning point. Get to a place where you can turn down the food. Get to a place where you're doing some intermittent fasting. Get to a place where you're starting to do some things that cause your body. But you know, you can be somebody who's eating the right food. I promise you. You can eat the right food. You can work out every day. And if you don't get your heart right and you still don't forgive, or you're still anxious, or you're still angry, you know you still won't lose weight. Because fat is something that your body puts on to protect itself. Your body doesn't know why it needs to protect itself. It just knows that you're going through something. And so if you're going through something that the body thinks that you need fat because it's cold outside, it will put on fat. It's natural, right? And the body thinks that you are going through something to where you've been hit too many times by something or whatever, and you need to put on fat, it will do it for you. If you're going through healing and stuff, it's not just because you're not moving. Your body says fat, protection. If you go through surgery, your body says we got to get fat real quick, because it's protection. It's a natural thing that Yah has created your body to do. Well, also, if you are anxious all the time, if you are frustrated all the time, doesn't matter how much you're working out, your body will still say, we got to say fat. Some of you are like, how have I been fighting fat my whole life? I've been working out and eating blah, blah. Are you anxious all the time still? Are you angry all the time still? Are you not forgiving all the time still? Are you still sitting up there dealing with stuff? Are you still trauma bonding to the trauma, having no identity outside of what somebody did to you? If so, then the fat stays. The fat is there for protection. Now, you need a certain amount of fat, by the way. Your body is designed to protect you in certain ways, right? Especially sisters, you're going to have babies. So the body says, I have to always keep a certain amount of fat on deck, especially once you hit puberty. First thing we do is we say, when you get puberty, you got to make sure you work and keep that fat off. No, you're supposed to have a certain amount of fat in your body index, or whatever they call it. You're supposed to have a certain amount, right? You're supposed to be, I'm not saying you can't be skinny. I'm saying for your size, especially for what you're doing, your body is supposed to have a certain amount of fat. It's supposed to, right? To deal, it's there to help you if trauma does happen. Now, watch this. And all the stuff that we're saying, I would be remiss if I didn't make this point. Trauma will come, but trauma is supposed to only be there for a minute, right? Or, for a short amount of time. Your body is designed to take on trauma from time to time. It is not designed to live in trauma all the time. Correct? Trauma will happen from time to time, guaranteed. You will get in a fight in life. You will have people that make you mad. You will have certain things that don't go your way. You will have moments that you can't eat the way you'd like to. Trauma must happen So you need to have a certain amount of fat, or even spiritual fat or soul fat, if you will, something that's there to protect you, that you can eat off of when hard times come. You need to build up some stability in your life, have some kind of discipline, and form something, get back to your natural form, to where when trauma does happen, you can deal with it. Here's the problem. Many of you deal with trauma 24/7 and not just from time to time. Your body can handle trauma, but you try to deal with trauma 24/7. Watch this. Even the person who loves working out cannot work out 24 hours a day. But the person who doesn't love stress can be stressed out 24 hours a day. Did you catch that? Did you catch that? Even the person who loves working out all day cannot work out 24 hours a day. If they try to, their life will be forfeit. Right? Here's the problem with trauma or stress. Even if you hate stress, even if you can't stand being stressed out, you know your body can in fact be stressed out 24 hours a day. Problem is that it's slowly. See, with putting too much weight and stuff, eventually your muscles say we just can't do it. Your body will find creative ways to allow itself to lose life slowly. And so you'll take that as you're doing fine, and not realize over time what's been happening is your very essence is being taken. Right? You won't even see that your very essence. Like you have energy vampires, stuff like that. A lot of people won't even see that your very essence. How you doing, PM? Your essence is being taken. Right? Anxiety, frustration, stress, and all this trauma stuff or whatever. Right? We live much shorter lifespans than what we should. Decided to allow trauma to live with us forever. Yeah, cortisol kicks in. Right? You have certain endorphins that will fire. You'll have certain parts of the body that just shut down. A lot of people don't recognize this. You have, I think they call it, I think they say now 13 systems. When I say systems, I'm talking about stuff like respiratory system, digestive system, skeletal system, circulatory system, respiratory system, etc. Right? You have endocrine system, etc. You have several systems. That being said, if one system doesn't work correctly, all the systems have to do things out of order. It's like if you're walking, right? If you're walking, you could walk with, like, to be honest with you, right now on this ankle, I have something going on with this ankle, right? It hurts to put certain amount of pressure on it. Now, if I'm not careful, I'll start limping, right? But you would say, hey, go ahead and protect yourself from the limp, protect yourself from the pain, right? So go ahead and limp. Problem with that is if I limp, right, as I'm limping, the rest of my body has to do weird things, right? And if I keep doing these weird things with the rest of my body, what would happen? The rest of my body is doing things out of order, out of character, right? This dis-ease now is going from where it should be to where it's affecting the whole body. So even though it hurts, if I get myself together, I can eventually just say, okay, let me walk, right? Let me do what I need to do, and I can just walk. And then as I figure out what's going on, heal it, eat certain things, stay away from certain things, maybe whatever the case might be, put together a little cast and maybe put some kind of vegetation. By the way, vegetation is not really a thing. Vegetable is actually a more cooking word, but y'all know what I mean. If I use herbs, shoots, roots, etc., right? Leaves, etc., flowers on it, and maybe put some cabbage on the inside or something to help with the healing. I can do those things later, right? But if I can, I'm not saying everybody can, but if I can, I try my best to have a regular walk, because actually the more I limp or the more I try to take the pressure off of the pain, I'm actually hurting myself even more, right? So I try to make sure that if it's possible, even if I have to get my mental space together, let me put pressure on it. Let me put pressure on the area and let me not affect the whole body. Same thing with your systems. If you have an issue with your digestive system, your circulatory system, your respiratory system are already jacked up. If you have an issue with your skeletal system, guess what? Your digestive system has to work differently to make sure that your skeletal system has what is necessary. This is why we call it being holy or holistic. If I have a problem with my spirit, guess what? My soul and my body are already messed up. If I have a problem in my body, guess what? As much as you don't want to receive this, your spirit and your soul are jacked up. If my body is messed up, my soul is jacked up. If my body is messed up, my spirit. Somebody says, well, hold up. No, that's not true. Now, I'm not saying if you're handicapped, your spirit can't be whole, right? What I'm saying, though, is that if I don't take time out to do the best that I can for my body is attached to my soul. And whatever I allow to happen in my soul is dealing with it. Whatever happens with my spirit there, or that's attached to it, my spirit's going to have to at least have some fight. And if I'm fighting all the time in my spirit, guess what I'm doing? I'm dealing with trauma in my spirit. This is why they call it spirits. If I drink alcohol in the physical, my spirit attached to my soul is going to deal with what? Spirits. That's why they call it wine and spirits. This is not an uncommon thought process, right? If I'm drinking alcohol, which allows the mind, which allows the endocrine system to get out the way, which allows the hypothalamus to be out of the place it's supposed to resonate, the frequency it's supposed to resonate in. If I do all these things, how you doing, Sister Teresa? And I have it to where I'm all over the place, but then guess what's going to happen? Eventually, my spirit man is going to be affected because my spirit man is attached to the same soul. My soul is attached to the same, my spirit man is attached to the same soul that my physical man is attached to. So if I don't get this trauma together and I keep trying to, we call it medicate, but really it's more so get some over-counter stuff, or I'm trying to use some painkillers to go ahead and deal with something that I should go ahead and walk on rather than try to limp around by using this alcohol. Let me get off the pain real quick because I don't want to really deal with the pain, but maybe I should walk correctly, right, on it to ensure that I see what's going on, because if not, it affects everything else when I don't deal with it. If I don't deal with the trauma here, everything in my body, it's the same thing in SOC, by the way. If you don't deal with your trauma, it's going to affect everybody, right? I'm the head, so to speak. I'm not the head of the body of Christ, but I'm the head of SOC, if you will. If I don't deal with some things that I know need to be fixed and I keep trying to walk around it, at some point it's going to affect all of you. That's just the way it works, right? We attached. This is why I need all of you to be great. Because if you limping around it and you're not going to deal with it, well, then that means that I'm limping too, right? Because the ankle doesn't seem like much in the body. You might think you're not anything because you're the ankle, but then when you find out when you're not right, everybody else is going like this, and we're trying to go around, skirt around your pain, ignore your pain. It's actually harder to walk. And now the left ankle is messed up. Now the left knee is bending and doing some things it's not supposed to. Right now my back is hurting because I'm trying to do this when I'm limping. Right now I'm looking like a thriller thing. I'm looking like I'm in Thriller versus walking like a regular human being because one part of the body is off. Right, stub your toe and see what happens. If you part of the body, when the toe gets stubbed, the brain doesn't say, that's just the toe. The whole body says, right? If one part of the body, see, this is when you really, look, you want to know when we really know we're a family? Is when we would need to get rid of trauma, because one person's trauma is all of our trauma. Come on, Holy Spirit, right? So I don't know if somebody caught that. I said that really quickly, but don't miss it. You know, when we would really realize that we're a family, and when we realize we need to get rid of trauma, not only help others to get rid of trauma, which we need to do, but also get rid of our trauma, because trauma affects the whole body. You know when we're really a family to when somebody's going through, everybody is affected. Even if we don't know why, later on we find out about it. Oh, you were going through such and such, thus and such. Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. I was feeling some kind of way about it. I didn't know. I realized like this was happening. We were missing this. I didn't know what was going on. But yeah, I'm sorry. Anything I can do to help? That's when you know you really becoming a family, because it's not just your trauma, it's ours. It's not just your beef, it's ours. You beefing with so and so? Oh, okay. We'll figure that out. Real talk. So and so's coming against Minister so and so. Okay, we got him. Wait a minute, Sister so and so's going through our state, and these brothers are trying to mess with her or whatever. Oh, okay. They need us to show up. you'll see very quickly, right? You'll begin to see very quickly, like when this stuff really starts to happen and stuff, when it begins to be something that, means a lot to us and everything. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna move down some real quick. I gotta move down some real quick. Y'all hold on a second. Oh, where y'all headed, yo? Oh, okay. Where you about to spray? Oh, okay, okay. So, am I okay over here? Am I over here? Okay. Okay. Y'all do what you. Oh, no, 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 no. It's fine. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes, sir. All right. Thank you. All right, y'all. Give me a second. Yeah, we almost finished anyways. But thank you guys for your patience. So yeah, so when it comes to the trauma piece, sorry about that. So when it comes to trauma, we can see why it's very important. And we can see how it's going to help us with family. We can see how it's going to help us with SOC. We can see how it will help us in where we are in life in general. Make sure that's not pointed at anybody's window. Um, and we can see very clearly, what Yah has in store for us as a people and how he wants us to be delivered from trauma, right? He really, really does want us to be delivered from trauma. He doesn't want us to have to sit there and keep living in trauma and traumatic situations. He doesn't want us to have to lose our minds. He doesn't want us to have to constantly and consistently have to worry about what everybody is, what everybody else has to think, what your haters think. Their haters are your motivators. You know, and hopefully you get the context of this because you know what hate actually means now. Hate your haters. Don't give them space. In other words, don't ignore them. Hate your haters. I didn't say be angry. I didn't say fight. Remember, love is action. If hate is the opposite of love, then it's inaction. You don't have time for the haters, right? I promise you, I don't really have time. I mean, we the people who hate on us, like now people who come at us, they're not haters. That's a whole nother category, right? And if we need to come at them, we'll defend ourselves. Hate summary, just remember, love, just as simple. Like love is if love is action, right? If we look at love, even if people go to agape, storge, phileo, eros, they're just talking about different actions of love, right? If alacham or yachaba achaba or alacham, achaba, yachaba is love, right? Then you're talking about the actions of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit that allow us to have the actions the Holy Spirit leads us in, right? This is the essence of love, is action, right? So when we say Yahweh Achaba, or people try to say God is love, love is an action. Well, if love is an action, hate is inaction. A true hater is somebody who tries to just doesn't care about putting effort or energy into you, or every time it's time for you to put something, they try to do things to squash the effort or energy you would put into it, right? If somebody's being angry or coming at you or fighting, that's another thing besides a hater, right? Yeah, indifference could be more hate. Here's a way to even look at scripture, even in the English, okay? There's a scripture in Proverbs that says, "He who spared the rod spoileth the child." Right? There's also another scripture that said, "He that spared the rod hateth the child." It doesn't mean you don't like your child. It means that if you will not discipline them or make sure that they are disciplined correctly, that you can end up doing what? Hating them, or your indifference will end up what? Spoiling them. We only focus on he who spared the rod, spoiled the child, but it's also talking about he who spared the rod, hated the child. There's times where discipline is mandatory. If not, you will mess around and have your child, because of your indifference and never dealing with it and never bringing it up and thinking, oh, well, I don't want to be raised like them, and think about, well, my child's different and they're going to be the only child to never have to be disciplined. When you do that, it's not that you don't like your child, it's that you don't love your child, right? I say this all the time. You don't have to always like me, but scripture says you should always love me. It's going to sound wild, but the scripture doesn't say, even though we obviously delight in him, but the scripture doesn't say I always have to like what the Most High is doing. I don't always have to like him, but I better love him always. Praise continuously in my mouth. That's an action. Even if I don't like what I'm going through, I praise him for what I'm going through, because I don't always have to like it, but I better love it. My actions don't change. My actions don't change because my life changes. And thank you. I don't know if that was Elder Amo or Young Prince Solid, but thank you. Right? But that's what the discipline, and that means you also must be disciplined enough to discipline them in love. Right? That also means you must be disciplined. The undisciplined parent will never discipline the child. Matter of fact, here we go with timeliness and stuff again. Your discipline, hear me, beloved. It is your discipline. Hear me again, beloved. Excuse me. It is your discipline that will be one of the biggest disciplines of your child. Your being disciplined becomes a rod. Your being disciplined becomes a rod. If my son sees me every day do certain things, he will begin to do certain things because he sees my discipline. If you hear me speak a certain way, some of you, and I'm not trying to say, excuse me, this because I'm all that, I'm giving you a parable or a tangible example, if you will, right? Some of you don't say certain words anymore because you hear me not say certain words. And when you've heard me in person, I do not say the words. And you hear now there's a community about the words that we use. And so therefore, since we do it as a community, we are disciplined. That discipline, before I even have to say something, when somebody's on the phone with me and they start to say, and look, I'm not even telling them they can't say it, but they might start to say good morning, and then they say, oh yeah, I'm sorry, blah, blah, and they go through this whole spiel. I don't correct them. I don't say, how dare you say good morning, and blah, blah. You know I don't say good morning. They say good morning. Then they start disciplining. Because we're so disciplined, they start. Now I make sure they don't judge themselves and start feeling bad. But I make it a point to be like, yeah, this because of what I do, somebody hears it, somebody is with it, and they say, I need to do it as well. I need to do it too. Your discipline becomes the rod, right? Your discipline, that those hot coals heaped upon their head, your discipline is the reminder for somebody, right? To be like, oh, okay, since you guys do this in this way, I'll be obedient as well. So sometimes we're so big on trying to make sure you better have that children do this, that child better talk this way or walk this way, and how dare that child think that they can blah, blah, whatever. Be disciplined. And watch that baby boy and that baby girl start to do what you do because they see you do it every day. Because you can tell them this happens a lot. This is why your PKs act the way that they do. Your preacher's kids, even though, baby goats are kids. We don't have baby goats, we have children. But nevertheless, right? This is why those PKs, those preacher's kids, act the way they do. Because their parents are great at preaching in front of you, but they are undisciplined. So they are disciplined enough for hours. Anybody can give a sacrifice, because a sacrifice means I'll do it once. So once a week for a couple hours, they'll sacrifice enough to make sure that you and I think they're obedient. But that child sees disobedience at home because they're undisciplined in the ways of the Most High. Right? And I can see it real quick. I can tell by the child. You have these parents and they be like, yeah, my child this and my child that, and they don't want to listen, blah, blah. And they're like total polar opposites of the person that's coming. And I'm like, oh, yeah, they don't live this way. And they'll be like, no, when I go home, I pray and I say this. And I'm like, how many times do you make sure that your child sees that this is the way it is no matter what? How many times have you even disciplined them when they do whatever? How many times if you say they can't go out for the next week, do you then say after a couple hours, okay, you can go out? How you doing, Bradley? If I'm undisciplined, it's going to be hard to discipline. Anyways, as you can hear, it's getting noisy out here. It is what it is. It's almost time for me to take my leave anyway, so we're going to get ready to get on the road. I'm sorry, no shout out for today. As you can see, it's very noisy out here. But we thank you. We appreciate you. We honor you. Hopefully you got something out of this message. We will be back on track tomorrow, 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time with the watch party. We will see you prayerfully this evening, 8 p.m. Eastern New York time for the live session. Tomorrow, brothers, we do have our men's meeting, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time, so we hope to see you all there. And thank you for being on. I'm going to go ahead, take my leave, get ready to check out and get on the road. Pray for us. Like I said, prayerfully, if all works well, maybe we'll be back, in the vicinity of the house by this evening. If not, you'll just see us live, and then we'll be back where we need to be tomorrow. And we'll see you tomorrow for the Rising, for our live session. Don't forget, May 21st is going to be when we have our May 21st is going to be when we have our makeup Passover. That'll be on the live session on Kofi_40, the original channel. All right. We possibly might have it on YouTube as well. But thank you guys. We appreciate you. We honor you. We hope that you guys are doing great and doing well. Brother Raj, I think I got to call you or something. You asked me about prayer or something like that. So I'll see if we can fit that in somewhere. We're asking for prayers for Brother Robert, who may or may not be done with the surgery. Probably, I don't know how long that surgery would actually take. But we're praying for him that he comes out well. I already called and talked to him and prayed with him before he went in. So prayerfully, he'll come out well. Praying for your safe travels, all of you. And we hope that you guys take care. So as always, we give honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. As always, you can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, a biologist by degree. Thank you, everybody, for being on once again. We appreciate you. As always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being the voice of the voices, speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Mate Ase. We'll talk to you soon.